First, I would like to start by extending my gratitude to Delia and Danny for making this happen, and especially for the Mercury Cafe because that was the first place I ever read a story that I had written, a nonfiction piece, and I met amazing writers, heard amazing stories, and had a live audience that was fully engaged in the process. And it's something that I will never forget. It was such a beautiful moment in my life that I'm incredibly grateful for. So thank you for that. Thank you for this. And thank you for all the good things that you do for us artists in the world. And before I start crying, let me get to my story. The title is This Has to Be the Middle by Kamga Tchassa. It was written and performed April 12, 2019. Jean-Luc Godard said, "A story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, but not necessarily in that order." Tim Burton, on the other hand, says, "Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, but not necessarily in that order. One recommends, the other affirms." Who, between these amazing storytellers, us in this digital room, and the world at large, really knows what's in a story? And truly, who gets to decide how our personal, individual stories get told? Except maybe us. Thank you for taking the time to hear a portion of my story. I have no idea if this is the beginning, the middle, or the end. I will do my best to maintain a semblance of order. But I'm African. So, yeah. My name is Kamga Tchassa. I'm 29 years old. I moved to the United States of America 10 months ago to marry my high school sweetheart, and I'm the firstborn son of loving parents. I have a brother and two sisters who cried the last time they saw me at the airport. My wife is a medical student who graduates next month. We just got approval of my residency interview date, and Queenie, my wife, is an amazing planner who has been able to take care of us both without a need for me to find an illegal job or starve. Right now, you must be wondering, what else have I great going for me? Yeah, life seems particularly terrific. So why am I here? Why should you care? Because that's what we all do, don't we? We're all curators. Even when forced to share the worst part of our days or our lives, we can't bring ourselves to let go of the mirage we've told ourselves over and over and over. You tell a story long enough and you start believing it. At least I did, until I met my therapist. Like you, my therapist doesn't know much about being a member of the Bamileke tribe from Cameroon. Bamilekes are known for being very entrepreneurial and pretty good with money. I think those genes missed me. Being the firstborn son of a Bamileke family comes with a lot of privileges. For example, were my father a king or some sort of noble, I'd already expect to be his dedicated successor, which means whatever wealth he would accumulated in his life would be mine at his death. Knock on wood. I would have to lead my family, and everyone would be under my authority, including my mother. My father is not a king, and I am not of noble lineage, but all my life I was reminded that I had to be a good example to my siblings because whatever I did, they would copy. As a first child, no one ever wondered if I wanted this authority. No one ever asked me how I felt about being a leader, or even if I wanted to be a leader. It was just expected. From kindergarten to college, from losing my virginity to picking a major, and almost quitting twice, no one ever asked me for one moment and truly meant it. How are you? I guess I learned fast what my place was and what it meant. I had to be the example. I had to figure out life by myself. I stopped expressing anger or worry or love. How dare I? So when I say I'm the firstborn son of loving parents, it's only part of the story. Because they are also children of loving parents. Children in a country that has shared implicitly that emotions are not necessary, that the economy doesn't care about your passion, that the politics of a divided nation doesn't give a shit about who deserves a raise. You must know someone to get something. That's why when I came to and started telling my own story, life changed. I quit school. I stopped dating for the sake of dating. I started reading. And like the good fake American I was, I started listening to podcasts. This is the part of the story where I say 10 years later. Because I get engaged, Before I tell my parents, I move out of town without needing their validation. I write everything online that a proper firstborn son shouldn't. About love, about heartbreaks, about depression, about fear, about dreams, hopes, and about being human, vulnerable and all. And with Deus Ex Machina style, my wife finds a way through the heart I didn't have after 12 years of digital connection. One grueling year of hoping I wouldn't have to jump over the world. I get here. June 23rd, 2018. Denver Airport. 2 boxes, one of clothes, one of presents, and I'm with the love of my life. But who am I? It's a question that hits daily. Every time I realize I can't work until I get my papers. Every time I see my 19-year-old brother-in-law driving a car he owns because I have never driven. Every time I open Amazon and can buy a book and have it shipped in days. Every time a friend asks me from Cameroon, so, how is America? How can I know what America is when now I have no idea who I am, what my role is, what is required of me? I'm the firstborn son. My father and mother are getting old. My siblings tell me about their needs even without wanting to. I'm married. I now see a therapist. I now know I'm black. I now need to listen to my wife as we plan for a child. How can this child have a child? I find myself in the middle of my story, finding out that where I come from constrained my emotions and that I'm not ready for where I'm going. That my money story, my love story, my parenting story needs to be rewritten. Rewritten. I find that love is not about sex or kind words and feelings. Love is all that, and it's every choice we make. I find that I'm biased, that I'm scared, that I need boundaries, that I'm worried about my parents dying and leaving me in a role no one ever asked me if I wanted. But that ultimately, no one cares. Not because we're all heartless. You certainly aren't. I mean, you're all sitting here watching this story. You're probably all good people, except maybe that guy on the left. No one cares because we are all struggling. We all have our stories, our worlds broiling within us, permeating each act, each thought, each decision. We all have our fights. We all are in the middle. This has to be the middle. I don't want to believe I'll never get over my daddy and mommy issues. How will I raise my own child? Or if I can't stop being selfish from years of having to do it all alone, how can I be a loving husband and partner? If I don't stop thinking only about me, my story, my life, my pain, how do I connect with others, with you? How do we then become part of each other's story? Today, right this moment, you have become a part of my story. Another layer on every story you know about yourself, about others, about the world. Would you know, for example, that every time I pay an Uber ride, I think of how this 19-minute trip was once a monthly payment for my services? Would you know that each time I see an avocado, I can only picture how the entire fruit looks like the seeds from the avocados we have in Cameroon? Would you also know that I speak 3 languages? Now I ask you, what do you know? What do we really know? Turn to the person beside you and ask, seriously, what do you truly know about yourself? Like, seriously. Because that's what my life has revolved around for as long as I can imagine. Doubts, confusion, mistakes, inconsistencies, judgment, sin, lies, hate. I've felt things I had no name for. Things I now call resentment, anger. Things I never learned as a child. I've felt things that have guided most of my decisions. I now know them. Fear, insecurity, need for validation. My story is not special. Not to me, anyway. As I sit here and share this beautiful moment, many are dying in my birth country because of a shared history some chose to bury. And now, in the parts of the country where I was born and schooled, hundreds of thousands are hurt, dying, driven from their homes, while the remaining 80% of the country doesn't give a shit. Well, maybe some of the 80% does. Who's counting? So each time I think of Uber, or now go to Walmart, or kiss my wife in our air-conditioned basement, or hang out with beautiful people who wonder where I'm from, I find myself in a position where I need to pick one story out of myriads. Do I tell you about the time when my wife predicted we'd get married even when we met in high school? Or the time when I almost called off the wedding a decade later? Do I tell you about my father and how I hope to be half the man he is, or how I hated him for most of my childhood? Do I tell you how I left the Catholic Church and my mother has no idea she influenced my decision, or how I secretly do everything for her to be proud of me? Or do I tell you about being in the middle of my story because that's the only way I have to go on? If this is the beginning, I don't know what I'll do with what I know. If this is the end, I have so much more I need to unlearn. This has to be the middle. This, my dear friends, has to be the middle. Thank you for your kind attention.